Mike, I'm going to start with you. The hype train for O'Malley got sidetracked when he suffered that TKO to Marlon Vera last year. How do you envision O'Malley bouncing back in this bout against Thomas Almeida?
Well, the reality is now he's lost his undefeated record. That can change things in most fighters, right? When you're undefeated, you literally feel like you can take out anybody on the planet because you've never tasted defeat. However, after that last loss, Sean O'Malley has not accepted defeat. In his mind, it was a fluke. In his mind, he is still undefeated. The reality of the situation, though, was that Chael Vera kicked him in the leg. It hit his peroneal nerve, which is equivalent to the funny bone in your leg, and that caused his ankle to go dead, and then he went on the floor, and then he got elbowed in the face and went unconscious. So it was clearly a loss. However, the mind is a powerful thing, so he still thinks in his mind he's undefeated, so he's going to go out there, he's going to fight with the same kind of vigor, the swag, the confidence that he always has. So therefore, I think he's going to come into this one, he's going to do just fine, he's going to be as confident as ever, and the Sugar Show will fire on, business as usual.
Well, Chael, I mean, the fact of the matter is he's still a young guy, clearly. Only 6 fights in his UFC career. So how do you see his potential playing out, especially in a very loaded bantamweight division?
Look, I thought that he handled the loss as well as I've ever seen it handled. He was a real gentleman about it, but he was also a sportsman about it. Sure, he came back and said, you know, I don't accept this, and that only happened because of the leg. I'm only bringing this to you because when you go into a fight with your first loss, you only got a couple of options. Do you put that behind you, you reset and go, okay, new night in front of me here, or do you come in with sweaty palms, worried about that record, worried what happens to me if I get a second loss? Do I slip lower on the card? How many losses can I have before I'm cut? Look, if those things are going through your head, you've got a real problem. But with O'Malley, it really seems to have put that behind him. He's had a baby in the meanwhile. He's become a father. Just by example, there's a lot of other things happening in his life. They're going to force a maturity, and I personally have a very open mind to him going out there and performing to his best.
Yeah, and again, to Mike's point, he probably sees it as a fluke. He may not count it as a loss, even though it is loss on his record. We'll see how that plays out. By the way, for an inside look on O'Malley and his opponent, Thomas Almeida, as they prepare to face off Saturday night, be sure to check out UFC Destined Part 1, streaming right now on ESPN+. Well, in the co-main event, the UFC future of a former champ could very well be on the line. Tyron Woodley enters Saturday having lost his last 3 bouts, the first of which cost him his welterweight belt. The losses have come against some of the top names in the division, but the 3-fight losing streak is also the longest of his career. So, Mike, I pose this to you. Prior to his loss to Usman, Woodley was performing at an incredibly high level. What do you think has changed to where Woodley now finds himself on this losing streak?
Well, to be honest, not much has really changed in terms of his style. Tyron Woodley was always a guy, he kind of skated around the perimeter of the octagon, just by the fence, and he would always rely on that big power shot, that right hand. Now listen, when it landed, it's powerful enough that it drops people or it puts them to sleep, and that's how he would win fights. But he never had a high output. Now, in his last 3 fights that he's lost, we've seen the same thing. He does not have a high output. Now, I don't think these things are physical. I think these things are mental. I think maybe he's resting on his laurels. He got used to the championship lifestyle. In this fight, he has to have the contender mindset. He has to go out there and be hungry. He has to show passion. He has to show fire. He cannot sit back and look for that perfect punch. If he does that, Vicente Luque is going to outpoint him and possibly get a finish. Now, Tyron Woodley was at the top of the heap for a long, long time, so he has that within him to do that. But when I see training footage of him, it's all about the physicality. For me, as I say, for Tyron Woodley, the problem is in the mind, and I'm very, very curious to see what he does on Saturday night.
You know, Chael, even during this losing streak, Woodley has continuously faced some top-tier contenders. This time around, it's 10th-ranked Vicente Luque. What would you say is at stake for Woodley in this matchup?
Look, here's the bad news, okay? Particularly on the heels of a release by the company of Alistair Overeem, a release by the company of Junior Dos Santos. Woodley cannot suffer a 4th straight loss here. He's also 39 years old. He looks much younger, but I got to tell you, those ages matter. And in all fairness, this could be his final walk. Now, he knows what he's up against, but let me tell you the good news. The good news is this is a 3-round fight. Woodley, who is a real explosive fighter, but strategically has to hold those explosions back. to make sure he has something for championship rounds should he get there. He doesn't have to do that this time. In a worst case scenario, he's only working 70% as hard as he's had to do the last 6 years. Now, I bring that to you guys because even with Woodley's back in the corner, I think we're going to see a great performance. I think this is the one chance that he actually can let it all go. That's something fighters say in interviews, but he actually can do it. 15 minutes for a guy as prepared as Woodley, this is easy work in that regard.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, this could be the last time we see Woodley fight in the UFC if he indeed loses his 4th bout in a row. So a lot of intrigue going in to Saturday's main card.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.